Oh, I see. I see.
Pat, I have some students working on Piney Knoll this semester, and so it might be fun to have you and Dave out to talk about how that harvest went a while back.
Yep. David's laughing.
Hi, Dave.
Right. The harvest went pretty good as far as I was concerned. The logger did an acceptable job in my estimation. It could have been better. It could have been a lot worse. And I think with Bob Seymour marking some of those trees, that was a big help. We got some trees out of there that we should have, and they left a lot of good crop trees. So I was happy with the job. We got complaints, as you always will, because it looks messy. But it doesn't look anywhere near messy now. In a couple of years, you'll hardly know we did anything.
Yeah.
What I've learned from Maine Audubon is that messy is good anyway, because it provides habitat. So, you know, within reason, messy is good. So I was happy about it.
Well, the students are doing an inventory cruise right now, so they'll be able to hand that off to Dave Wardrop when the new management plan is due.
Yeah.
You've got them busy doing all kinds of things, Jessica. They're involved in the tree, whatever. The emerald store, right?
That would be the other thing is if we have monthly meetings, I would love to have Sydney Young have the opportunity to present her emerald ash borer assessment plan. Probably April or May, she'll be far enough along, but it'd be a good, well, I think we're all interested in what she finds, but also it'd be good professional development for her to be able to share it with the tree board.
It sounds great. I'd like to hear more about what the plans are, what they're going to do.
I'm excited. I met with those two students last week, and they left with the survey result, the inventory from 2002 as a jumping off point, and they certainly have a lot of enthusiasm. I think it's going to be fun to see them work through it. Yeah. And the town will get a really nice product out of it too. I think something we'll be able to use.
Yeah, I guess that it came with a CD, and they were their modern laptops don't have compact disc drives, so we were problem solving what the silver disc was, which is so funny, and where they might be able to put that. And I think Louis Morin on campus is going to help them with it, and it's not that hard, but it was kind of funny.
Well, when I handed it to them, I mentioned that my computer doesn't have a drive for that either, so I wasn't 100% sure whether that was the full report or just the spreadsheet or what was on it, but I thought if they could get access to it somehow, then it would have to be again a good place to start for them. So
I have a copy of that's the big thick binder with I've got a copy of the files because I had taken them down. So if you can't get them off the CD, let me know.
The bird just hit the window.
I saw that. It flew.
So who are we expecting? I think we're all here, aren't we?
We're missing Dave Lambert, the newest member, as well as Matt Ewing, although I don't know that we got any confirmation from either that they were able to make it.
I didn't. So I think for the members that we were expecting to be here for this meeting today, I think it's all of us. So
Right.
if we're comfortable getting started, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight's meeting, of course, is going to be primarily focused on a discussion about the two silver maples over on Hamlin Street. I've got a couple other housekeeping things to talk about, but I thought perhaps we should just jump right into that discussion unless anybody has, perhaps we should go around and introduce ourselves so people watching know who we are.
This is being,
I'll start. My name is Rob Yerxa. I'm the Public Works Director, as well as the tree warden for the town of Orono.
I'm Cindy Blees, and I'm a co-chair of the tree board.
I'm Pat Thompson. I'm a member of the board.
Dave Thompson, something or other of the board. I retired almost 20 years now from a forestry profession.
Tim White, member of the tree board.
Jessica Leahy, member of the tree board. I'm a licensed forester, and I work at a local land-grant university as a forestry professor.
Right, great. And Sophie Wilson, our town manager, is hiding behind the curtain there. She's been gracious enough to help manage the Zoom meeting for us. And
He's listening behind the building.
Oh,
if she's needed to, she or wants to chime in, she may, but otherwise she's more or less the administrator of the meeting, the Zoom meeting for us. So thank you to her for
Yeah,
helping
thank
us
you,
out with
Sophie.
that.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess I thought I'd just start with describing the way the process has gone thus far with the two trees. And then we'll open it up to discussion. So back in May, I was contacted by the homeowner at 31 Hamlin Street with some pretty significant concerns with two large silver maples growing in his front yard. Like I would normally do, went and met with the homeowner and did a site visit. At that time, I observed two very large silver maples that looked in general in good health. But my conversation with him helped me to recognize that there's probably also some significant issues with safety associated with the size of those trees and the way they've grown out. So I wanted to make sure that we gave the trees as much of an evaluation as we possibly could. At that time, I sent the email to the tree board that I think everybody got a copy of, sort of outlining my concerns, recognizing that the health of the trees in this case are better than some of the ones that we look at, but the hazards and risks associated with the way the tree had grown and the size of it made it worth the tree board's attention to go out there and take a look at it. At that point, the homeowner sent me an email, sort of paraphrase or sort of summarizing what our conversation was at the site visit, expressing what the reasons why he had chose to contact the town. And I will say at the time that when I did the site visit, I did verify that the trees were within the right of way. So I knew that was something that the town would need to address. And I think at that point, that email went to Pat and Dave, and they reached out to members of the tree board to have the evaluation of the tree done and to generate a recommendation from the board. When I got back, well, amongst conversations with Dave, which is how it commonly works, also came an email sort of summarizing the recommendation of the board, stating that it was important that the hazards be addressed and that the recommendation was to either prune or remove, and it was sort of left up to the lucky Public Works Director, tree warden, to make the final decision, which incidentally, for people that are watching, that's an important point to understand, is that as the tree warden, I'm an appointed officer of the town, appointed by the council to make decisions about trees, tree removals, those types of things, closely working with the tree board as an advisory committee. So while the tree board gives the tree warden recommendations, they're not the ones making the decision. The ultimate decision is made with the tree warden. I started in 2008, so I'm a little past 12 years with the town in this position. And I don't recall a single instance where I didn't agree with the tree board. Dave, do you have any examples of that ever happening before I started?
So,
I don't think so.
Yeah, so that kind of indicates how much in concert the tree warden works with the tree board, and the input that the tree board gives the tree warden is really an important decision-making tool when it comes to making the call on what to do with a hazardous tree. So yeah, so based on what came back for me, it seemed like, given the wishes of the homeowner, the recommendation from the tree board, and my significant concerns with the potential for property damage or personal injury, I felt like it was appropriate to have the trees removed. And from that point had proceeded to begin to get the removal scheduled. This year, for any number of reasons, it has been a very difficult year to get contractors into town to help us out. The Orono Public Works Department doesn't have the equipment to perform removals of this complexity, and so we rely on arborists to come in and take care of those removals for us. So we are sort of at the mercy of the contractor's schedules. And this year, combined with the crazy spring that we had and a couple different windstorms, they've been extremely busy, and it's been tough to get them in. So it's been a couple months since the decision was made and getting the actual work done. This week, we were scheduled, I had a couple other trees on Mayo Street that we needed to do. So this week we had the contractor scheduled to work in that area. I marked the 2 trees, and after marking them, we had a couple members of the neighborhood express significant concerns about the removal. And so significant enough that I felt like it was important to be sure that the tree board was still confident that removal of these 2 trees was appropriate. So I decided to postpone the removal of the trees and engage the tree board, which ultimately led to where we are tonight. So I think the only thing I would say about the decision, I think I have always tried to be cautious. I think that the health and safety of this community is ultimately what guides my decisions when it comes to these. Very closely followed by what I understand is the value of our tree inventory and the quality of life that our tree inventory provides for our community is also important, but I don't think it trumps the health and safety of the residents. That's, and given some of the incidents that have occurred in town, even in recent months with the large cottonwood on Benneck Road falling and taking out utility wires, and we're just lucky there wasn't that wasn't a town tree, but that demonstrates the severity of what a falling tree can do. And I just felt like it was appropriate to err on the side of caution when I made that decision, just to kind of illustrate where my mind was at the time that I made the decision. So I think that's the background information. That's the process that was followed to get us to this point. Now I think I've brought it back to you all to discuss it. I think the important parts of the conversation are really should be geared towards some form of consensus based on the evaluation of the tree, and not necessarily the feelings of the homeowner or the members of the neighborhood. Really, I feel like we need to stick with the facts and understand whatever the decision we make needs to be a fact-driven decision that has support beyond what the input of the residents in the area and the homeowner have given us. So that would be my only guiding information that I think is important for you all to think about as we go through the process of making this decision.
Rob, do you have some idea on the possibility of pruning some of those big limbs? And also then the future of the tree, if they are pruned, if there's any clues about that, if you've talked with an arborist about that, or.
So I discussed it with the arborist that we've hired this year for the tree removal, and it's a possibility. With silver maple, it's as you all know, silver maples tend to have that large base stem, and then they split into all of those different leaders, and these two are similar examples of that. I think the pruning of the tree is going to be difficult and still maintain the character of the tree. Like I said, I don't think that it's impossible, but I'm concerned if we prune it to the point that we're happy with the safety of the tree, the character of the tree may have been pushed back to the point where it's no longer, what people are perceiving as the spectacular character of the tree.
And apparently from what the homeowner had written requesting that the tree be taken down or pruned, had some limbs had already fallen off, and I guess the hydro had done some work on it. And I think Pat said that this afternoon. But also a car had been, windshield had been broken on a car in the area. So I don't know if it was his car or what, but I know I can understand his fear of having limbs fall on his house and or on anybody going by on the road, for those that are hanging over the road.
Rob, could you talk about, in your experience as tree warden here in Orono, how do our silver maples behave? What is their trajectory? How do they compare to the behavior of other trees that you're dealing with in the town right away?
Yeah, so we've had even so in April, we had one over on North Main Avenue, basically just split in half. Luckily that was in a larger yard, and it pulled the electrical service off the building, but it landed safely in the front yard. And that is the typical, we had one, I don't know if we had one behind the library that was not as in as good health as these two are. It was on its way out, but silver maples with, and I've done a little bit of reading on them too to verify this, but silver maples begin to shear off limbs because the wood is brittle, more brittle than some others. And in talking with the arborist today, that was something he mentioned, particularly in the winter months when it's frozen, it becomes even more brittle and far more likely to break off or shear off than, say, a typical maple or well, and he did mention Norway maples are a problem too, and that we've seen that for sure all over town. What I've seen with specifically to silver maples is those larger limbs breaking off, and that's the challenge. The leaders, when they do break off, are so big that they're bound to cause damage. There's not, you don't just lose a couple small limbs on a tree like that, particularly in a heavy wind snow event, something like that.
Yeah, I can remember the extensive discussion we had on the silver maple behind the library. And a lot of people were really upset that tree had to come down. And between the time when it did come down and the discussion, as Rob said, a big limb broke off that would have done a lot of damage if they had in fact had developed the area under the tree as they wanted to. And I looked it up online or in a book, and the wood is softer and more brittle than that of the slower growing hardwoods. It's a fast growing tree. Mainly it's found along stream banks in the wetter areas, but it does grow in other places, and was probably planted there. And the average age, I think, is 100 to 130 years. And it's hard to say how old those actually are. I would guess that they're 70 maybe. You could bore them with an acre borer, but I don't think we got one big enough to get very far into it.
Those are too expensive to put into a tree like that.
I think it's they're both nearing the biological age, I guess, when they start to decay. And the fact that you mentioned that the typical growth is a trunk that goes up a short ways, and then they branch out. And that's what both of those do. And the big branches tend to break off. It might not happen, anything happen for 20 years, but it might happen in 2 months, especially in the winter with the snow load.
Rob, I'd like to compliment your summary of it, because I think you captured well I went back through the tree board discussion of it, and what I would say was that there was a lot of discussion that the tree was healthy, and that there was it had leafed out well. There's no visible sign of rot. Tim took new pictures this week, and we all visited, and that appears to have held through the summer, but that the overhang over the house and the other the health and safety risks were definitely being factored in and causing you can tell from our recommendation to you that we were kind of equivocal about it, and you were as well. And so you summarized it well, that we were really torn on this, and it's unfortunate that the branches overhanging the house have been allowed to get that large and overhang as much.
Yeah, that in the research I've done over the last week or so, that is one of the management tools is frequent and and I guess aggressive, you would say, pruning, to manage the size and to manage those long leaders that want to just grow off towards the sunlight. Obviously, with the considerable size of our inventory and the limited resources we have to do that, we can't be out there pruning our entire inventory every year. So that is, I mean, I think if I could characterize this situation, it is just an unfortunate placement. The tree is, both of them are out of place.
Right.
And that is something in my research that's come up, is that it's a pretty common mistake that was made 50 or 60 years ago. And you know, we have other circumstances around town similar to this. I don't think not as close to the home as these are, but there are some other locations around town where we have silver maples that have really sort of outgrown their place. And that's typically, when you think about managing our inventory in the right of way, a lot of times, whether it caused the health of the tree to suffer or whatever it might be, you know, they planted a large maple directly underneath the wires or things like that. You know, a lot of times it's not the tree's fault, it's just not in the right place. And that's something that, you know, we people of our generation have learned and know that, and Dave's very strongly opinionated about planting trees under wires for good reason, because, you know, one way or another, the health of the tree will suffer, or it'll simply be removed at a time when it's too early for that. And so picking the right place for a tree has become a very important part of managing our inventory in the right of ways.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say, I think the trees are and it's been noted that they leafed out well, but the fact that they crack along the large joints, the tree that's closest to the steps up to the front house have a beautiful European maple tree growing in the crotch. The other tree has several what appear to be splits and other vegetation growing in the main crotch. And when you look at the tree that's farther away from the steps, if you look up towards the top, it seems to start showing decline. Which again, if we had the ability to trim it, that could possibly work. But I also am concerned with this just being the beginning of the downfall of them, or the decline of them.
I think we have to factor in both directions too. So I think we're focusing on the homeowner that's directly there, but it may have the ability to reach across the street. It's large enough for that.
Oh yeah.
And the utility wires are located, the wires for the services for the street are right across there. And one of the leaders, actually, if you're standing on the sidewalk and look straight up, it reaches out as far as those wires. So yeah, there's other parts of the area that are threatened if the trees did start to fail. So I think for me, like Tim was saying, there are one thing I will say is that I didn't climb in the tree. You can't see in the fork where it splits, so you don't really know the condition of that. I mean, our evaluation is very visual, so we observe what's going on with the tree, but we don't necessarily, we don't take the core samples. We can't go up in the tree. So in some ways, that evaluation of its health is always, of course, more reliant on what we observe, not necessarily data that we collect about the tree. There's no real way to truly identify how old it is without coring it. So we don't know where it sits on that 130-year average lifespan. So there are a few unknowns there that we can sort of presume, but not necessarily have data to support.
Am I correct in understanding that our responsibility is to treat things advise at the individual tree level? So do we need to prioritize across other more pressing trees given the health of this, or do you, I think you may do that as tree warden, and we're best serving you by just talking about specific trees?
Yeah, I think, because yes, I'm bound by the resources provided to me, but, and I do try to work through prioritizing removals, but I think for the tree board, I would just like a recommendation for each tree, and then I can try to, and also sometimes I will, like I was going to do in this circumstance, try to make the trip for the contractor to town as efficient as possible. So if I can group trees in like locations and those sorts of things, sometimes that I'll do that as well. But really, I think I am best served with talking about each tree, or each, in this case, 2 trees, individually. And if we had true hazards that needed to be addressed that couldn't be fit within the limits of the budget, within the resources, then, I'd be finding more resources. I wouldn't let hazards go unaddressed. If that makes sense.
I was curious, not that it has a bearing on how I would assess the tree, but what are the plans for after the trees are removed? Will the town be replanting?
So the homeowner has, I will say in my conversations with the homeowner, he's also torn by this decision. I think he understands the value of these trees, and but I think obviously the hazards outweigh that for him. But he has indicated that he'd be very interested in replanting something more appropriate, in whether it be in those locations or somewhere else on his property or the front of his property. It's a little bit more open as you move down the street away from where these 2 are, and that might be a more appropriate place to plant something. It's across the street from the wire, so it's actually a good opportunity to plant something that's a little bit more appropriate.
In the past, that's been what the tree board has done. And if we take down a tree, we give the homeowner the opportunity to pick out a different species that is suitable for the location, and the town plants it, or has it planted. We've been doing that for quite a while. But we don't plant big trees on the wires anymore. But that happened when I first went on the board, but we don't do that anymore.
We seem to be picking more native species as well, which is a good thing, since some of the complaints are these like the catalpa and things like that.
So are we ready for a motion for the board?
So I think, I think, you've heard from the homeowners. You've heard from the neighborhood, through me, of course, but ultimately this decision needs to be what's best for the tree. So, and what we think is best for the health and safety of the community. So I think it would be important to keep that in mind when you make your motion, but whenever you're ready, if you think you've talked about it enough,
We have a message from Susan Brawley. She wants to make a statement before we vote. Can you see that on your computers?
I don't see anything like that.
Oh, well, it just flashed up under Tim's face.
I do see it. So that's up to the board. If you want to hear the statement before you vote, you can vote and then allow public for Susan to make her statement. It's really up to you.
But I thought we're supposed to make the decision based on
The tree.
the tree, where it is, and not what other people think about it. You know, it is, granted, it appears to be a fairly healthy tree, but as you mentioned earlier, Rob, unfortunately it's in the wrong place, or they're in the wrong place. And to
Correct.
me, they present a hazard that I'm not
I'm not comfortable.
comfortable stating that the tree should stay there. We saw that several instances where trees have come down in the town of Orono and caused damage and caused injury. Main Street was the last one I'm aware of. So.
Yeah. You know, we haven't talked a lot about what our options are. So maybe before you vote, if you'd like to just kind of, you know, I think we're all in agreement that doing nothing is probably off the table. Because I think no matter how it works out, we need to do something. We've obviously decided that the tree presents some risk as it exists. So I'm kind of going to throw that one off the table. The second option would be to attempt to prune it. Prune it using our arborist to make sure that you know, it's done in a professional way, and to the point where we think that we've done what we can to mitigate the hazard. We will not eliminate it, but we can mitigate it with pruning. But again, like we've talked about, and I'm not a certified arborist, so I'm not sure if that is possible. So to go through the work of pruning it to the detriment of the tree and its appearance as well as its health may not be the best option. We could attempt to prune it with a plan to reevaluate it, let's say in 12 months. I don't know what that gains us, but that is an option. And then, of course, the final option is to remove the trees. So to me, those are your options currently, unless there's some other questions that are left unanswered at this point for you guys.
Well, pruning normally would be done much earlier in the tree's life so that it doesn't have those 4 or 5 big limbs coming out the way they do. And I think that at this point, the pruning option is going to leave a tree that doesn't look very good. It's not going to be very attractive. It's going to be destroyed anyway.
Well, if we were to, I mean, I think the default should be to reconfirm or reaffirm what our recommendation was before, and it, you know, yes or no on that. And then if we choose to change it, what is the new recommendation? And our recommendation at the time back in May was to trim the branches or remove if that isn't feasible, and that it needed to be the tree warden's decision. So I guess to reveal what I would think would be that that would still be my preference, to prune if possible, if it's both safe, the tree would live and it would look good. And then if that's not possible, to remove, and that would really still need to be the tree warden's decision after talking to the arborist when they're both there, and which branches would be pruned, would it resolve the issues or not.
I think that's a good idea to have an arborist take a look again, if that's feasible, Rob, and see what the arborist would say about pruning and how much would need to be pruned from the tree. Because I know if you prune too much, the tree won't survive anyway. But if you only have to prune 2 branches, maybe that would work. But I think it would be a good idea to get some idea from an arborist to see about the pruning part, since that was what we initially did suggest. But that would depend on whether it needed to be actually taken down or if it could be pruned in a good way.
I mean, I
So-
suspect that would be
We're
what
talking
that,
about-
I can guess what the arborist would say, but that it probably would, that the branches are too large. There's too many of them.
Mhm.
And it's just too awkward. But I guess that would be the flow that I would like.
I don't think that an arborist is, there'll be no professional that will come to you and say pruning will solve the problem. That's I think watching these, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, with the character of the weather that we've been getting, I've seen perfectly healthy trees uproot, split in 2, all those sorts of things that, and then a few, whatever it might be, 1,000 feet down the road is a tree that you think you could just push over, and that one made it fine. So, I'm not opposed to having another professional take a look at these trees. I don't think that it would delay us to the point where we still couldn't get to them this year before the winter months. The trick would be I would think if we were going to take that approach, I'd want to try to find somebody like a third party person that doesn't have interest. So probably not the arborist that I'm going to use to remove the tree, because there could be some perception of interest in that. But I can work to find a third party inspector of the tree to make a recommendation as to whether pruning is a feasible option. I think I'll probably just go to the ISA website and find somebody with there are a couple with specific to municipal certifications that I may be able to get up and have them take a look at it. So I guess the thought would be that I could have that third party person come take a look at those 2 trees, give us a recommendation. If the arborist comes back and says pruning isn't an option, then the board would support removal of the trees.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's what I would
And-
say.
And we
Mhm.
just recently had a certified arborist on our board, and he was unable to continue because of his time constraints. But I think that could, knowing that he's volunteered for the community in the past, that, and I don't think we have any, I don't think he's working for the town. That could be good, and he might even be able to, given his familiarity with urban trees. Tim's photo album is pretty nice. Maybe he can do that, but I believe he's based in Bangor. I can email you his contact info.
Yeah, that'd be great, Jessica. I know we have a certified ISA certified arborist. However, he lives on the street, and so I don't know if that could be perceived as a third party. Really, I think
I don't think that's
he
a
could.
good idea.
I mean, not to say that he couldn't do it. He's a professional, and I would probably wholeheartedly trust his recommendation. But I think just to remove any possibility for
The appearance of.
Exactly, Tim.
Mhm.
I think I would like to even, perhaps it would make sense to even go outside the community, but Jessica, that sounds like a good suggestion. And so,
Well,
we can
I
go
want
ahead.
to go on record to stating that I'm not in favor of any decision that puts individuals at risk. I take my responsibility on the tree board very seriously, and I've been on it for a long time, and I've seen too much happen that really scares me that somebody could be seriously injured. And
Right.
that possibility is there. So I want to go on record to saying that I really think we need to do something pretty quickly, not wait till next year. The winter's coming, the winter's here, and that's when you're going to more apt to have a problem with snow loads and cold weather. And it,
Right.
you know, any source you look at, the weak, it's notoriously weak, brittle wood. It doesn't
Mhm.
stand up like sugar maple or even red maple.
Pat's in next day.
Well, that's all
And
I.
that's that I agree with Dave, is that we need to absolutely
Yeah.
work on the side of safety, and as I think, Rob, you did a nice job with the summary and describing it as they're beautiful trees in the wrong location.
Right.
And I'm concerned when I see, as I say, a beautiful European mountain ash growing in and it looks like it's about 6 feet tall in the crotch of the tree. Where are the roots going, and what's it surviving on, and what's the damage that's inside? Several of the upper branches have cankers on them that I didn't climb the tree, but I don't know what's going on up there. The tree has beautiful lines in the bark where the large branches, the large trunks come out, and those are obviously weak points on the tree. I would be I'm in with Dave on this, that I would be horrified to think that if we left this tree when we had the opportunity to address it now. Even looking at some of the leaves are starting to turn, which tells me it's a stressed. Some of those branches are stressed already. So it is sad. They're beautiful trees. I think the only reason we're on the tree board is because we appreciate the beauty and the value of trees. It's just, this is beautiful trees in the wrong location.
I was thinking this would happen next week. Something.
Yeah, so I will certainly get to work on getting somebody here to evaluate the tree and make the decision. I was thinking a similar timeline so that I can get back to work on scheduling the contractor to do whatever the results of the arborist recommendation turns out to be. So I guess sounds like we've got a little bit of consensus here. I don't know if somebody could clarify that in a motion that you guys can vote on to give me some direction, and then
If you want to give me a second, I'll type one up. Hold on.
I think Tim's going to end up being the co-chair if this
Uh-oh.
continues.
you know, I'll be chairs if you want. It's just a matter of who does what. I guess while Tim types, if you don't mind, I'll talk about a couple other tree board related things. I think most of us probably saw Jessica's suggestion about probably setting up a more regular meeting schedule. I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure what other members of the board feel, but we've had a bit of turnover in recent years. And so I think us getting together like this can't be a bad thing. And it'll also help us kind of clarify those communication lines a little bit so that we don't end up with any miscommunications at all.
I think it's a good idea too to meet like this because we can include people in the community who just recently did express this week, you know, a concern and wanted to be involved and hearing what was going on with the tree board. So I think that is a good idea.
I'd like to use it to better record our decisions because it's just a flurry, and then Dave tries to summarize it in one sentence, but maybe we want a couple. I think, like in this case, it would have been nice to have a little bit longer record, and that could be generated by having a meeting like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I agree. I think you know, we've got one thing to remember is that the tree board exists for all kinds of different reasons. One of the things that you all do, one of your responsibilities is helping out the tree warden with evaluation of trees and you know, making sure that the trees we do remove are worthy for that and making recommendations and things like that. There's all kinds of wonderful things that the tree board does outside of that you know, I think shouldn't be forgotten.
One of the things we did in the past year or so was save our little forest that we have between the two schools that was going to be destroyed in favor of a retention pond, and it took quite a bit of effort to get that through, but and I think it's ended up in a much better place anyway from the standpoint of administering to it. But
I was thinking
the
the
other
same
thing
thing.
we often do is, or used to do, other than to this year, was meet with the 5th grade, I guess it is now, the students out there, and they really seem to like that. They get into it, they get a chance to see what trees are, get a plant or prune or put mulch around them. So, and it was too bad we couldn't do it this year. But.
And they are very much into invasive plants and trees. And they know a lot about it because their teachers are teaching them very well. A year ago when we met with them, we were amazed at how much they knew about invasive trees and plants. And they were really into the emerald ash borer. So if your students, Jessica, come up with something even next spring by May, if we can actually meet with the students again, your students could probably present to the 5th graders some information about the emerald ash borer that they would eat up. We have an ash tree up there in the nature garden that we have marked with the tags that are given to us each year when we go to the state get together for the tree boards. And whenever we go and do that, they want to be right in the middle of it. They want to help tie the tag on the tree and are very, very interested. It's amazing, I think. And a lot of people don't realize that garden is there, but there are some stairs that lead up from the Adams School up the hill towards the high school. And that area is where Pat and Dave were very involved on the tree board in establishing that garden. And there were some beautiful, beautiful young trees up there and plants. And now that it's a haven for animals because we are leaving some brush in the area and actually making a brush pile, which we used to cart away or Rob would have people come and cart it away. But now we're leaving some of that brush so that small animals have cover. And it's really going to be a nice area, and we're really glad that that area is not going to be destroyed by the project, the building project, which is fine at the school, but it was just that it was going to take our garden away, and I'm glad that that got changed around. So
I have some proposed text that reads like this. Motion to request the tree warden seek a review of the 2 silver maple trees by a licensed arborist to determine the feasibility, public safety, health of the trees, and financial impact for a successful pruning of the trees. And absent a feasible pruning solution, the removal of the 2 trees.
Sounds great.
I second that one.
I'm in agreement.
Yes, me too.
Timetable,
So, yeah, I don't know if you want to, no, I wouldn't build it. I'll work to get it done. We'll, you know, if I run into a snag, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get somebody to look at it in a reasonable amount of time, I'll come back to you and we'll talk. But I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to make this work for you.
Great.
Do you, is it
So-
helpful to add to the motion a friendly amendment that we would like to see action taken before winter? Or is that, we don't need that, that's going to happen?
Well, it's your recommendation, so you know, I'm going to work to get that done, of course.
Yeah, I would trust that Rob is again with his understanding of as David noted, the winter's coming, snow loads, the cold, the type of wood that we would be dealing with, and Rob had already started the process of having the trees removed when we took this step back, which is valuable in the process. I trust that Rob's going to do what he can do to get this addressed quickly.
Okay, great.
I don't think it's a bad thing to have the friendly amendment. I just think that Rob it's a professional understanding, and I think he's got it.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I'm just trying to be like town council.
It was a good vocabulary choice there. Friendly amendment. That was nice. So I guess
You weren't wearing a powdered wig, so it doesn't work.
so one of the chairs needs to call for a vote, and then you can each vote in favor or opposed of the motion as Tim has proposed it.
Okay, I call for a vote according to what Tim just read, to go along in that direction as soon as possible.
I vote aye.
Need more discussion about that? Does anyone have any more discussion about that?
no,
So
no,
what I'll do is I'll do a roll call vote for you to make it
Okay,
clear as a bell.
okay,
I'll call out each of the members and you say,
I see. Okay, Rob.
yeah, I'll call out the name and you tell me in favor or not, okay?
Right.
So we'll start with Cindy, one of the co-chairs.
I am in favor.
We'll go to Dave Thompson,
favor,
Pat Thompson,
In favor?
Tim White,
In favor?
Jessica Leahy.
In favor.
Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, none opposed, and
I
so
couldn't take do the pruning piecemeal.
I will get to work on that.
Tree looks
I-
like,
Believe, Sophie, are you there?
I keep expecting to see her
Yes,
peek around from the.
She's writing checks.
yes.
There
What
she
can I do
is.
for you?
Is there somebody that would like to speak still, or
Let me just double check. Susan Brawley's hand is still up.
so if the board is interested in
who was that?
allowing her to make a statement,
He's a
Sophie
neighbor
can
on Hamlin.
facilitate that.
If you'd like me to facilitate that, I can make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's fine
All
that she speaks. I think that the fact that we are here together at 5 o'clock on a Friday is pretty demonstrative of our dedication and on taking the request
Yeah.
seriously. But if she's still interested in speaking, then we can certainly hear.
I'm having a little technical difficulty.
That's what I would have. Technical.
I can see her statement on my computer.
Yeah, let me see what I've done here.
I don't hear anything.
I don't think we have any powers.
No.
No.
I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah.
I'll
There's no
admit.
hydraulics, Rob.
I know where all the. I've actually gotten a little having all our council meetings on Zoom. I've gotten comfortable with this format, and I think it's got its place. This certainly seems it's easier to get people together. You don't have to travel, and you save a little bit of time actually for
Right.
meetings like this.
That's right.
Today, this is sort of advanced. I installed, there's a Zoom for Gmail add-in, and so I can now schedule Zoom meetings with one click in my Google Calendar. That's a little bit dangerous, but
Yeah. Well, I'll start having virtual coffees with you.
I think that's great that we could get together today and discuss this, and hopefully we'll have an answer very soon.
Yeah. So while Sophie works on that, I will. Yeah, I'll work to try to figure out what works as from the municipal calendar in terms of. I think meetings like this work best if you can just sort of set a planned date, whatever it is, the third Thursday of each month or whatever it is, to have a regular meeting. That way we can plan. I can get, evaluations squared away and things like that before we have our meetings. And I think that would work out well, but I'll work with Sophie on trying to figure out what the best place, because it is a public meeting, so we would notice those on our website.
Right.
People
Right.
could watch or participate as needed. So we'll see where it fits in there, and then of course figure out what the availability of the board is. So
I like this 5 o'clock time. I know that Tim needs evening times, and 5 is really, I go to bed quite early, keeping Forrester hours. So like a 7 o'clock meeting is pushing it on me to be alert and everything. So the 5 o'clock is actually nice because now I'm going to go have dinner and then continue on with my routine.
Okay.
I got Sophie calling me on the phone.
There's a message from Susan. It says, thank you for opening this meeting to visitors. And she is thanking Rob for finding a certified arborist. I don't know why it comes on mine, but.
Yeah, I just see his little line occasionally, and
Yeah, Cindy, that's because you're on the iPad. It's a little bit different for you, but yeah, it's in the chat box. And
oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Could we just
Removal of major
get
trees
her?
is as significant for someone building as it is for someone still has a house.
Well, and I think this.
I've got a problem. I hit the participant button and now I can't get back in.
Well, my impression from the chat of Susan is that she's good, and then especially if we continue to have monthly meetings, there'll be even more opportunities for public involvement, maybe in-person meetings and things like that.
In the past, we had met on a quarterly basis and had open meetings because we announced it, I believe, at the town office at the time. But now since COVID has happened, we haven't really been meeting except for sending emails and that sort of thing. I didn't figure out that. I just learned today how to use Zoom because Jessica taught me. So I need a lot of help in that department. That's for sure.
I like monthly. We can make them quick, but it'd be great to have a deadline. Like sometimes we get asked to evaluate a tree and then like I don't get to it in time. This would give us like a good deadline to actually to do this. And then some of these things I think do benefit from monthly planning. So Arbor Day activities, the things with the youth, we probably want to talk about that at least like three months leading up to it. So we don't have to always use the full time, but it I think we might as well try it. We can change it later.
Yep, that's true.
So it looks like Sophie got Susan in, but she's leaving.
Well, if you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I guess the point I wanted to make is that I wouldn't have known about this except for the orange tape Rob put up around the trees. And the trees have been in this position, including the limbs over that house, for a long time. I rented in this neighborhood from Terry and Ellen about 10 years ago for 3 years. And they're major stature, they are of major stature, but you know, it will change Hamlin Street dramatically if they have to be removed. I said briefly in my chat that I had a lot to do with saving the Campana elm from being cut 25 years ago. And we watch the tree very carefully. It's inspected regularly. At this point in the season, all mature trees tend to start to have some limbs that start to change color. So that's not a big deal. And I just want to hope that you will realize that for heritage trees, it's important, just as when we in a neighborhood get a notice about somebody putting some tiny addition or something onto their house, so that it's not a surprise, and that there's a chance to make sure the decision's being made well. So I trust Rob to have a really well-trained arborist look at this problem, and not just someone who cuts trees under the name of arborist. And that will make me confident in your decision, whatever it is, because I will know that you have evaluated the tree properly. So I thank you all. And thanks for letting me join tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Sophie, was there anyone else? I can't see the little hand button, so I don't know who, if there's anyone with.
Nobody else raised their hand.
Okay, so I'll get to work on scheduling our next one sometime mid to late October, I guess. And you know, Dave and I had talked earlier this year about a bunch of these types of procedural things that I'd like to kind of tighten up a little bit. But also, it's been quite some time since the vegetation ordinance was passed, the tree ordinance was passed, and maybe it's time for us to take a look at that and see if council's interested in making some changes if necessary. You know, it's always good to kind of review those things. So it usually gets a little slow in the wintertime anyway for the tree board, as well as, I hate to admit, for me, because everybody's out plowing snow, and so that tends to be the time that I really have more time to dedicate to those kinds of things. So as we transition into the winter maintenance months, and I get to put construction away for a little bit, that's really the time that I'll have to dig into these ones. And I'm really looking forward to it. So
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Let's start the weekend.
yeah, if nobody has any.
Motion to
I can't
adjourn.
motion to adjourn. You guys.
Yeah, I will. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye. You can turn that into a wave. That yes
Thank you,
goes
everybody.
to a wave. Bye.
The black fly wave.
Yeah.